Okay. So we're here for our 400th negotiation meeting. No, I don't know what number this is. Following our last meeting, I typed up the agenda that we had prepared for our remaining scheduled meetings. And Jill gave me some feedback on it, which I incorporated. It just helps me to get mentally organized. And so then I shared that with Stephanie this morning, just so that she knew what our agenda for today and for the upcoming meetings entails. And I thought it would be good to make sure that we have this agenda so we do any homework and we're prepared and ready to talk about any issues. Because I know last meeting you guys were just sort of put on the spot, and I appreciate you guys being willing to just kind of throw it out there, even though you hadn't probably been planned to discuss some of the issues. But I'm glad we were able to be productive. So what we talked about doing today was having a presentation by our multi-pronged, every issue related to calendar and PLC time subcommittee, and have them come to us with what would be an advisory recommendation only, subject to us going through as detailed level of an IBB process as we feel like we need to, talking about and determining if it's something that we have a consensus on or that we want to continue to problem solve on. And then the last item on our agenda today would be taking up where we left off on the late resignation issue.
Okay. And who are the folks that led up that committee?
Jill and Mike.
Oh, okay.
Me and Mike.
Yep. Right.
And I can share if you'd like me to.
Yep.
Okay.
So as Jill is pulling that up, just a huge thanks to our committee. We had a great group. A lot of folks are sitting around this table, but we also have some folks out in the audience as well. I think it's safe to say that we're really proud of the work that we did. Some lengthy conversations, some productive conversations that brought us to what we think is a solid recommendation that you're gonna see today.
I don't want to. I'd rather do it this way. It's just so much easier to see. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So there's our title.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
As Rachel alluded to, we accomplished everything. We think we'll see. And so again, as we came together, and just thanks just directly to Jill. She facilitated the group, and it was a challenging group at times, but she did a nice job of pushing us forward. You can see the goal there, and we met our goal of bringing something on April 18th, so just under the wire. We talked with the team about the IBB issue statements at play, and of course it was a combination of both association brought issues as well as the Board of Education brought issues. So we talked about that. We had different people coming in and out of the group, but we think we captured everyone there, the members, and again, a lot of us are here at the dais, and then some are out in the audience. So we did have 3 meetings, very productive, I think hour and a half, 2 hours at times, meetings. And at some point as a team, we established some tests that we wanted to apply to each of the proposals that were coming forward. And basically the test was 5-pronged. Would the solution provide consistent PLC time? Would the solution provide more professional learning? Would it provide more prep time at the beginning of semesters? Would it provide contract consistency across all of our professional employees? And then finally, would there be more work-life balance? So with everything that got brought up, and there was a lot of things that got brought up, we would try to apply those tests to each of the solutions. I haven't read this in a while, but I'm just going to read this because I haven't read this in a while. Part of the team's original recommendation was to add additional student contact time across all levels in an effort to provide more calendar flexibility. This changed when we believed that there would be significant costs associated with increasing the daily work time of our paraeducators and aides. The recommendation to follow includes more student contact time, as it was later discovered that the student contact time could be increased without increasing the work time of our paraeducators and aides. So in saying that, it was a Mike mistake, honestly. We had an original proposal that we were working on. I started kind of sharing that idea with some district leaders, and the conversation came up, what about aides? What about paras? Could we still keep them on the same schedule with 10 more minutes across all of our levels? And the initial thought was no, that we would have to add 10 minutes to each of their days, and of course that was going to be a cost. Upon further review, I guess I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but upon further review, we figured out that we could keep them on the same schedule. So that's a little caveat.
Awesome.
Okay.
So we have 2 PLC options to consider. And this is specifically elementary because our middle and high school are doing a late start. And we're not going into significant detail about the 2 options, but I'll try to describe them as best we can. Option 1 is what we call an ABCD rotation for PLC, where you have an ABCD schedule at the elementary level for your specials classes, something similar to that, where you're pairing up 2 grade levels. We kind of called it a buddy system to help with supervision, so that one grade level would be PLCing while the other would be working with all the students. Option 2 is a late start, similar to what they have now at the middle and high school, and it would have a rotation of staff that are supervising the students, similar to the way middle school does their late start, where they have a staff on a rotation to supervise the students in the morning while the rest of the staff is PLCing. Important to note down at the bottom with both options, because we had so many prongs, sorry about that, so many things to address, we are recommending to change your elementary plan time to 250 minutes per week and to change the elementary contract day to 8 hours per day. So that's it for
Can you say what it currently is, Jill?
Yes. Currently, the elementary plan time is 230 minutes per week, so that'd be an increase of 20 minutes. And currently, the elementary contract day is 7 hours and 40 minutes. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on.
Okay.
But it would be an increase to both things
Okay.
by 20 minutes. So, 20 minutes per week for the plan, 20 minutes per day
Got
for
it.
the contract. Okay. For option 1, after hours of discussion, lots and lots of discussion regarding schedules and supervision of students and what it might look like, the majority of our subcommittee believes that this is the best option, option 1, where we do a rotation of PLCs on an ABCD schedule. Option 2, one of the main concerns was related to having a large number of bus riders or families that would still drop their students off at 7:50 in the morning at the elementary and supervising that group of students, and how that might work in an elementary school where there are less adults than in a middle school or a high school. We're still considering them. These are one to be transparent with when we asked the subcommittee to give us their opinion. What else?
Okay, so this is me. So the what else slides bring us back to a story that we're trying to tell that is pretty linear. So again, we want to try to accomplish each of these tests. If we don't add 10 minutes to the student contact day, we can't accomplish all of these tests. Okay, so our recommendation is going to be to add 10 minutes of contact time, student contact time, across all levels. So this is kind of muddled, so let me take you through it one step at a time. So elementary, let's take a look at that first dark bullet. Staff contact time would be 7:40 to 3:40. No matter what, that's the 8 hours. And then right now we've got 2 different proposals of a student start time, student contact time. Both of those are an additional 10 minutes. What you see in blue is our current para schedule, and what you see in red is what would have to be changed for the paras for that time schedule. And that's true for the rest of the way down. So again, staying with the elementary, we have two different proposals of student contact time, an 8:20 to 3:20, or an 8 until 3:10. And then for the middle, you can see staff contact time would be 8:05 to 4:05, and then a couple different options of student start times, start and end times. And then the same for the high school.
Then you want to talk about the star versus the,
Yep. So Dr. Ziegler's here and she can help if I mess this up. But the asterisks need to stay together. Or, what is that symbol?
tilde, I think?
Thank you. That one has to stay together because of busing. There has to be at least 30 minutes on the end to allow for bus drop-off and pickup. Okay. So you can't pick 8:10 to 3:20 at elementary and then 8:30 to 3:40 at middle. Those have to stay together.
Right.
And by doing this, we would gain 3 to 4 additional days to the calendar, which we'll talk about in a second.
And back when we were showing the two possible PLC options, we did discuss a lot about what the day would look like, where the times would, when it would all happen, who might be buddies with each other in the different classrooms, but we decided that we didn't want to put that out there yet. We really think it'd be best to have a group that really looks into that, and we did as well. We just weren't ready to put that all up there yet. Consistent PLC time. So these are the 5 things that we were testing kind of for. So with option 1 of a rotation of PLCs through ABCD, it would be consistent across the elementary grade levels and the schools from the elementaries and the schools throughout the district, but it wouldn't be consistent with middle and high school, meaning middle and high school would always PLC on Thursday, and elementary you would have your day of the week that you PLC'd based on an ABCD schedule. But we would have a district-wide schedule for elementary so that horizontal alignment could work. You'd be able to meet horizontally with your PLC. Option 2 with a late start, yes, it would be consistent across all grades and all levels throughout the district because everybody would PLC on Thursday morning. Okay, more professional learning. For both options, we would not have more professional learning if we don't add student contact time. We would not be able to have more time in our calendar. But if we do add more student contact time, we would have additional days available that we could schedule for professional learning at both elementary and secondary. And then additionally, with either PLC option, it would again allow for weekly staff meetings that could be used for additional professional learning. Our current PLC option right now, we have 2 staff meetings a month allowed, and this would then allow principals to have a staff meeting every Tuesday if they needed to, and that could be used for additional professional learning. All right, more prep time at the beginning of the semester. Again, if we don't add more student contact time, no, we would not be able to add another day for a teacher work day. But if we did add more student contact time, then we could have an additional day available to use as a teacher work day at both levels. Contract consistency. So yes, with both options, we would change the elementary contract day to 8 hours, which would be equitable to the middle and high school contract day. Also changing them to an 8-hour day would help with supervision during dismissal time, especially if we're considering adding the 10 minutes to the student contact day. We would need them to be there for a full 8 hours so they can help with dismissal. And then a little history. Elementary contract time was scheduled for 7 hours and 40 minutes many years ago. I think it might have been in the 90s. to account for them having less plan time than middle and high school. So the reason they had less plan time was because one day a week, they wouldn't have a special, like the classroom teachers. They would have art, music, PE, and library, but then the 5th day of the week, they wouldn't have a special, so they wouldn't have a plan. So they had less plan time than the middle and high school, and kind of a concession when we would do traditional bargaining was to have a 7-hour and 40-minute day for elementary to make up for the less plan time. And so that's one reason kind of that we saw to bring it up to an 8-hour day and to increase their plan time as well. Work-life balance. With both options, elementary staff would have 250 minutes per week of plan time, which allows more time for preparation, self-directed tasks, lesson planning, parent communication, and then you have more flexibility and time opportunities for appointments at the health clinic if you have more plan time. And then also adding student contact time can help alleviate the pressure of meeting those student minutes. I'm sure Darren can agree to that. We saw your great Excel spreadsheets where you calculate all of that. And also it can allow for a late start, more of the late start Thursdays for secondary, which is definitely needed in August and May, because right now we PLC from basically September to the end of April. What I mean by that is in May, we don't have late starts, if you weren't aware of that. And then student contact time, adding that would also give us additional days that we could use for teacher work days, which will help with work-life balance and professional learning as well, make you, in order for you to gain more knowledge on how to be better in the classroom and a better teacher for your students. And then I think, questions? Or I would even ask committee members if they want to add anything, come up to the mic, or put them on the spot. I will say I believe we shared this presentation with all of you. Do you have it? And like I said, we do have some sample schedules of what the different PLC schedules might look like, but we didn't want to throw that out there yet. So.
Okay. When we were going over the elementary one, which one would provide more time for parents to get there to pick up? Would it be the 3:10 one, 3:21, or the 3:40? Which one do you think would give the 3:20 or the 3:10? Which one do you think would give parents more time to get there and safely have enough time for their?
I don't understand what you mean.
Because if at 3:10, I guess they would have the contract, yes. I guess they would have 20 on both ends, is that right?
Are you saying that if the school got let out at 3:10, the
Yes.
staff would be there till 3:40?
Yes,
So they'd be there
that
for
gives
30
30,
minutes to help with
yes.
dismissal. But if students were let out at 3:20 at the elementary level, staff would be there
Yes.
20 minutes.
Yes. So would both of those times provide enough time for parents to get there? Or would it be better to have 30 minutes for dismissal rather than 20 minutes, is what I'm asking.
I would say just from experience in elementary dismissal, if we were to add the student contact time, the 8 to 3:10 would be a little more appealing for that extra dismissal time.
Chrissy, you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think 8 o'clock is a good time for kids to start learning, and 3:20, I think we're going to have a lot of tired friends, so.
I agree with that too. I would say the earlier we start elementary, the better just stamina-wise of the kids, and when I know they're ready to go and ready to learn. I mean, 10 minutes isn't a huge difference, but it also is a huge difference in the elementary world. 10 minutes can be a lot of time.
Yeah.
Dr. Dane, what do you think about a 7:30 start time for high school kids?
7:40 is pretty tough. 7:30 might be impossible. Just navigating. I know all 5 high schools struggle with tardies at the beginning of the day, and 7:40 is a pretty tough start time. I know in Blue Valley, we started in 7:45. When I was in Olathe, we started at 8 o'clock. So we're still the earliest on the watch as far as start time goes, and I think 7:30 would be pretty tough for teenagers and teenagers' moms and dads.
Can I ask Christy Ziegler a question? Do you know if our district has middle school as the, let me say this, elementary starting in between middle and high because of some particular reason?
I have no idea about this.
Okay, I didn't know if maybe because more bus riders happen at the high school and the middle school, so you put elementary in between them?
I
to help
can
with-
dig for
I was just curious.
an answer to that. I really have no information on that that I can offer right now.
Okay, no problem.
I know different districts do have their configuration differently than ours in terms of who struggles with
Okay, thanks.
How much flexibility would this team have in like mixing those times?
Yes, I was wondering.
Well, the agreement says the superintendent makes that call.
Got it. In making a
Michelle?
how much leeway would this team have in making an advisory recommendation to the superintendent as to which level of students goes first, second, third? I mean, is one group of students way larger than the other?
The secondary tiers typically, because you have more geography, you have more riders that qualify over the 2.5 limit.
Yeah.
So middle school and high school, we tend to see more bus riders in those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dr. Ziegler, the constraints from a busing standpoint is we have to have a 30-minute differential on the back end,
On each end.
on each end.
We have a little bit of wiggle room on that middle or that high school to elementary initially when we were talking about the difference between a drop time of 7:40 and a start time of 8. That's because they've already run the route, they've dropped off the high school students, and then we have a smaller population, but more buses to spread out and pick up those elementary riders. And traffic tends to be a little bit better, a little bit kinder in the morning during that time frame than it does in the day.
Right.
But right now, with conditions and staffing, the bus company would tell us they would like more time between tiers, and I don't know that we can fit that.
So, good.
I would just share this, that I think it's pretty consistent across the 5 high schools that our buses unload at 7 o'clock or earlier, right now.
7 a.m., like 7:00.
We have several buses that are dropping at 6:50.
Oh my God.
And so, as far as the buses go, whether we start at 7:40 or 7:30, not really a
Oh,
factor,
interesting.
because our buses are dropping so early. So,
It's more the people that drive to get there.
right. And I know the drivers are feeling under the pressure because they want to get to their next route and get those kiddos to school on time. But as far as, I mean, we don't have any buses that are dropping past 7:15, 7:10 or 7:15. If we have a bus that arrives after 7:15, they're really late on their schedule. And then it's always been that way. And so I think DS, we've seen a lot of success with DS, and it's been an earlier drop-off. But even before we were with DS, all of our buses had dropped easily by 7:15 or 7:20.
And I want to say at middle school, I've seen buses dropping at 8:15.
That is so early. So early. It's for high schoolers.
Yeah.
And high school principals and teachers.
They drive themselves in.
So as Jill said, the superintendent has some latitude here. So if this committee, just to help us maybe move forward, if this committee agreed to the extended time for elementary teachers and then the extended time for kids. I mean, we could do some tweaking this way or that on staff contact time. Like if the concern is to make sure that there's 30 minutes on the end of elementary, I mean, you could change the contact time and then change the student time to move high schools up to 7:45 or, I don't know, I haven't thought all the way through it, but I think we could tweak it in the way in which could maybe make it work.
And I don't know what the stagger is in the afternoon.
30 minutes.
No, I know, I know what that is, but I'm talking about the buses and the routes. So, I mean, obviously, we have the same concern in the afternoon on the bus route, so our buses roll at 2:47, and I don't know how quickly they run their routes and then jump to the next. So I don't know if that's a concern in the afternoon with this bus stagger on the routes.
Can we not do 5 minutes on the front and 5 on the back?
That's a great question. I know, I'm looking at Laura because you were talking about that too. And I think I mentioned that to Darren about doing a 5-minute.
Well, I mean, you just do the 5. It would be 8:05 to 3:15. And then.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're saying 5 and 5 on each
You're
side.
still getting the 10,
You're
but
saying
it's
10
not as
minutes,
big
sorry.
a difference as all you're getting there, so.
I thought you meant just adding 5
No,
minutes.
that puts high school 7:35 to 7:45.
2:45, yeah.
Or 7:35 to 2:45, yeah. So you still get your 10 minutes, but it's less of a change because it's only 5 minutes on each end.
And then 8:05 to 3:15.
You got it. It's
And
just not as big.
8:35 to 3:45. Which I think middle school is like, yes, keep it at 3:45, don't do 3:50. I mean, yes, absolutely, that would definitely be another
It's just the least
Consideration.
amount of.
Shifting.
change.
Shifting.
Because you don't do 10 minutes on one end, you do 5 and
Right.
5. Yeah, and like Mike said, we have recommendations forward for making an 8-hour day for elementary, increasing student contact time by 10 minutes, and then the plan time per week for elementary as well. And other than that, I think we don't necessarily have to decide exactly what these times are, but we can say what our recommendation is for that if we'd like. So I don't know what that looks like in typing up
Yeah, what all does it
the
impact?
IBB state,
Is that contract language, but is it also
Oh, it is.
and then just mostly calendar adjustment?
So there would be several provisions that if this team reached a consensus, and I would have to go through and carefully look at it. Of course, the contract day for elementary, the number of days for all professional employees would change.
Nothing,
Plan time?
what do you mean the number of days?
Yeah, plan time would change too.
Plan time, we would be taking out the entire section about the
PLCs.
pilot program would come out completely. Staff meeting time would go back in, I assume.
Number of days would not, I don't see the number.
No number of days, okay. I'm sorry, we're getting those additional days for PL because we're adding student contact time. We're not adding contract days.
Correct.
Okay, sorry. Didn't make that mental jump yet. So, yeah, the length of the contract day for elementary would change. Plan time for elementary would be increased.
2:30 to 2:50, correct? Per
From
week?
2:30 to 2:50.
Part of our language does talk about when we have teacher work days. So if we were going with the recommendation of adding a teacher work day to the year, we would want to have that in there.
Let's pull that up and look at it, just because I don't want anyone voting without knowing exactly what,
Do you want me to
yeah.
come off here?
Any other questions, comments, or thoughts while they're looking that
Does,
up?
I know we've talked so many times and that we have groups of professional employees who feel like the solution works for everybody but them. would option one, would there be ways that we could get consistency for the singletons, for the sped teachers, for the
Yes.
specials?
Yes, every single
Okay.
person in the building would have their day, A, B, C, or D, that they PLC'd.
Okay.
And we looked at a morning time.
Okay,
So like from when you start your contract day and then, a chunk of time for PLC. And the supervision would happen in the morning
got it.
during like a morning meeting.
Okay.
I just was, like I said.
So that
hesitant
should
to
be an
show.
improvement from the pilot program, because it was
Correct.
more difficult under our pilot
You-
program.
Yeah, you wouldn't be using you wouldn't be required to use your plan time to PLC. If you chose to do that because your third grade team wanted to PLC during your plan, absolutely, that would be supported. But there would be a designated time in the morning on either an A, B, C, or D day that you would PLC, no matter what you taught, including resource teachers, PT, OT, SLP, the related services. Thanks. A lot of letters. Who am I not thinking? School psychs, social workers. So even them, they would also be part of
Got it,
that, because we want to make sure to include everybody.
got it, okay.
Just want to make sure that we're verbalizing it in case people have questions. So since we're adding 10 minutes potentially to the student contact day, students will then go less days.
Right.
And so then there's more days for us to use in the 187 for PL and work days.
I think students go 174. So it would be less than that.
So we can explain that to the high schoolers when they're setting their alarm clock 5 or 10 minutes earlier?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
3 days are up to them.
It'd definitely be a full percent.
Okay. Think if I have any more questions. I'm gonna do a quick scroll of the P&A to see if there's anything else that we haven't. This should shorten the P&A, if that makes, the pilot program section with its massive chart added like a whole page, so, it should shorten the P&A and simplify it some.
I'm going to say like 59 pages versus 58 pages. I mean, it's still pretty long. But it's a good way to look at it.
In terms of ratification of this change for our elementary professional employees, my observation from walking through schools after school is that there are still teachers sitting there working and doing their work. So I hope that it doesn't have like a real actual day-to-day change. I mean, their contract time is there, but I believe they're working, as we all do, for public schools more than 8 hours a day. I mean,
So some feedback I've got
Yes.
there that I just want to throw out because I agree. I've tested the waters with a few staff members to see how they feel about this. Some of the feedback I've gotten was actually a little bit of the opposite of that I already work 8 hours. And they enjoy the flexibility of when that 8 hours is. Because there's people who are coming in before. Personally, I come in about 7:20 every morning. And I know teachers that stay till 4:30 every day. So I do know there are staff members in terms of ratification who may not like that provision where they are forced, I don't want to use the word forced, but where they're now required to stay during times when they wouldn't have really with that flexibility that they like.
so it's gonna be difficult.
Are we adding 10 or 20? We're just adding 10 minutes to elementary, right?
Well, the student contact time is 10 minutes, but the teacher's contract day would be an 8-hour day
So
instead
it
of.
goes a
so it'd be
total of
20
10 more, so it's a total of 20 for teachers.
Per
Okay.
day.
And with that too, the concerns that have been brought up to me, specifically with teachers with kids in one particular school district, Olathe, that change would hinder them because they're not going to be able to get to their kids and pick their kids up from school on time.
Got it.
And I heard that as well, and I know that's a really big concern. I feel as though, not to diminish it, but I feel like any working parent is going to struggle with dropping off their children at school and picking them up from school.
Yeah.
And every district has a 7-hour and so many minute day for their students, and they all have an 8-hour day for their staff. So unless we all have the exact same schedule, I think there's always going to be issues with trying to drop off or pick up.
Oh, yeah.
So an 8-hour contract day is consistent with the other school
Yes.
districts in.
And 187 contract day is where, or like year
Okay.
is,
So
there's some that have 186 days.
in
but-
terms of explaining, because I mean, I get approached too every time I go to site visits. People have questions. So what you get in exchange for that is an additional 20 minutes of plan time per week, and then how much PLC time will they get on an average week?
We carved out 45 minutes per rotation, and there's going to be, is that right, 45 minutes? guys?
Well, it might be 40,
40?
but
40 to 45, and then there'll be some weeks where they'll actually have 2. So every fifth
Okay.
week,
Every fifth week.
you'll have 2 PLCs because of the
Okay.
ABCD rotation.
And the hope would be that that gives you efficiency in your planning and that you're able to get more done at work and leave more at work.
yeah, and that you'd be able to not PLC during your plan if you didn't need to or want to.
Right?
Correct.
That could be your own time to answer parent emails,
Oh, yeah.
take
Go
a
to the
breath,
bathroom,
eat your lunch,
take a break.
whatever.
And I will say that's going to help a lot, knowing that we're going to have plan. And I know, I brought this up a couple of times now that I'm kind of mentioning it too, that our current language is plan per week.
Yep.
And looking at plan per day as well, that 50 minutes guaranteed plan per day instead of week.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a bit, and I was mentioning secondary, but I think, Joe, you talked about how even at the high school, you're not getting a plan every day because you're block scheduled for 4 days. You're getting a plan every other day. And I was just thinking more about the people that are not in the classroom, that maybe they have the flexibility to do 250 minutes a week, and they can
Right.
kind of move it around so that it's not 50 minutes exactly every day. So that's kind of why I would stick with the weekly amount of time.
I see. So so I'm an elementary teacher. I get that during special.
Yes.
Correct.
Then when do I get my other time?
What do you mean? You get 50 minutes a day of specials.
Okay, so it's fit in during the special time.
Yes. Are you talking PLC time? When does that,
Oh, plan
okay,
time.
just plan time,
Just
okay.
plan time.
Yeah. So it really just matches when their kids are at specials.
Are we increasing the amount of time kids are at specials?
No, it used to just be that you would have a 50-minute special every day,
Uh-huh.
but throughout the week, 20 minutes of one of your plan times could have been used for PLC or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's kind of messy.
I mean, I do like the cleanliness of
Yeah.
250, 5 days a week,
Yeah,
but
okay.
Question on the collaboration time, and maybe you guys already talked about this, but is there a plan with the specials rotation to embed collaboration time for your specials teachers, special education, and how does that work?
yes.
Have you guys already shared that and I missed it, or?
The time of day that we were going to have the PLC rotation was at the very beginning of the day. And so every staff member in the building would be part of the PLC rotation. They would each get a day, A, B, C, or D, where they would be PLCing from, I don't know if I want to say the time, but like 7:40 something till 8:25, 8:30, so.
And Dr. Gonzer and Mr. Lowe mocked up some ideas of what that buddy system would look like. And again, it would be consistent across the district. So
Right.
all schools, K1 would be on this day, 2, 3 the next day, so on.
So that if first grades all in one attendance area wanted to meet through WebEx on their PLC time, they could, because they would all be the same day.
So your interests under PLC were consistency, demonstrate importance, move student learning forward, provide a sense of equity with teachers regarding PLC time, have the most effective collaboration between all levels, reduce teacher stress, enable teachers to fully function in their plan time, and the success of initiatives relies on teacher autonomy and PLC team collaboration.
And I just wanted to speak to the early childhood piece. So Because we have two sections, when I spoke with everyone, they wanted to continue to have our PLC in the middle of the day so that both sections would have the same amount of minutes. So we would still meet in the middle of the day between our two sections, is what was the consensus from everybody at the early childhood level.
Thank you, Amber. I am so sorry that I failed to mention pre-K. Yes, pre-K would continue to do what they are currently doing because they have an AM session and a PM session of students.
Would that need special language?
I don't think we have language around when the PLC happens.
Nope.
No, on their plan time language would change.
Oh, well, they would still have 250 minutes of plan time per week.
And then what about virtual? Is there anything, I just had in my notes, what about pre-K and virtual? I had in my frame and focus notes from when you guys unpacked it.
I think it's because we meet over WebEx because we're in different buildings.
Oh, okay. Okay, nothing you need to work on. Got it.
Do you think there's anyone that's gonna really miss the pilot program, or was that like, we tried it and it wasn't the best solution?
I think there'll still be teams that want to meet during their plan time to PLC, and they might continue to do that. There were some feedback on, will we have a staff meeting every single Tuesday? Because some of the buildings said their principals felt as though they were required to have a staff meeting every Tuesday. And we kind of just suggested that the language allows for that, but you don't have to have one every Tuesday, and instead you could maybe once a month have a PLC on the Tuesday like they're doing currently with the pilot program. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if people will necessarily miss it. This would be a district-wide thing.
Okay.
I agree with that, and for the sake of, full transparency and clarity, Mr. Lowe and Mr. Darby pulled together some principles, and I think my takeaway, and Mr. Lowe, please add anything, was that there's not going to be a perfect system for every school across our district. There's just so many discrepancies, and so to your point, I think there's going to be some who think that this year's okay and maybe better than last year and maybe even better than what we're proposing. But I guess my push would be that we want a consistency across the system, and this provides that.
Okay. That's helpful.
Is that fair, Mr. Lowe?
Yeah, of the 7 principles we pulled, I think it was fair to say that they're about split between option 1 and 2. And I think the variables that we talked about were the size of the school, how many walkers, how many bus drivers, and just the variables of our 34 elementary schools probably made up why they chose either option 1 or 2. But like you said, consistency.
So I know you all usually do thumbs, you don't necessarily vote, you see if you have consensus on it. When you originally created this issue statement, I think you all had it on the first page of your PowerPoint, just before we do thumbs, you guys had a big task. It was ensuring the calendar and the teacher contract more fully support teachers' ability to plan and prepare, teachers' ability to engage in professional learning, adequate PLC time, sufficient instruction time, and adequate supervision for students. I feel like the way you've talked about this, it wasn't easy choices, but it feels like you met each of these. My third-party perspective, you all would know better. But I think maybe you're ready to go around the room and see if you have consensus on this, or were there any other questions? Or do you want to see a final version? Sometimes you guys have thumbed it and then you kind of looked at language later, or you've held off on thumbing. What do you think on that? Just process-wise.
So are we looking primarily at option 1 then? I guess would be my question.
I would wonder if we should first do a thumbs up or thumbs down on the things that we wanted to change as opposed to the option 1 and option 2. Like first, are we in agreement to make it an 8-hour workday for elementary? Are we in agreement to have 250 minutes of plan time a week? Are we in agreement to add 10 minutes to the student contact day as a recommendation?
Right.
And then look at the way you do it.
And then maybe look at the option 1 and 2 for PLC after that.
Sounds good.
Dr. Dennis, how many student days would the 10 minutes per day reduce? I'm not saying this. 3 to 4, okay. Okay. So do we have any other components than an 8-hour contract day for elementary professional employees, an increase for plan time for elementary professional employees to 250 per week, and the contact time is not something this committee decides, if I'm right, like that's not in our P&A, but there would be an understanding that that's what it would involve.
And then with the additional 10 minutes of student contact time, we could recommend to have an additional day of professional learning and an additional day of a teacher work day, another teacher work day, and perhaps late starts from August to May for middle and high school.
An additional teacher workday at the beginning of the second semester.
From my poll, it would be at the beginning of the first semester.
Beginning of the
So, like, we usually come back in the very first day as a teacher workday, and then we have 3 days of professional learning. So it'd be after that to have another teacher workday.
Got it, okay.
So just some clarification on that.
But it's not negotiated, so.
Right. Yep, okay, just so we're there. And then also, like, this year we had full workday at the beginning of the year at each quarter, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, we have one at the beginning of first quarter and one at the end of first quarter. Then we don't have them at second quarter, except at the very last day, it's like the last, like, I don't know, few hours, because it's an early
Half
release
day.
for kids.
It's a half day.
When we start second semester, we have one at the beginning of third quarter.
Full
We also
day.
have one at the end of third quarter before
Correct.
spring break. So it's like first quarter and third quarter when we really have those teacher work days. And then at the very end of fourth quarter, we have one.
Correct.
So the hope would be to have at least a workday at the beginning with each quarter.
Yeah, what I hear a lot is that when we have our work day at the beginning, the very first day back to school, and then we have 3 days of professional learning, it's difficult to jump right into with students the next day without having one more day to or however much time, without having any time to do some last minute adjustments and planning and preparation.
Yeah, for many,
So-
it takes more than just that one day to get ready for
That's true.
small humans to be in the room.
So anyway, I mean,
And so you'd be in favor of 5 days to start the year, one for teacher at the beginning and one for maybe before to start the school year? And 3 in the middle? Is that what you're saying you'd recommend or
Right.
would like?
yes.
Strongly recommend.
5 days at the beginning and then 3 throughout.
And I guess that would adjust the
3.5
Yeah,
throughout.
lockout.
Throughout, yeah.
But, I mean,
Okay.
So,
but as far as thumbs up.
yeah, do you want to, I guess, thumb the concepts, right? And then, do you want to work to finalize the times that you're going
That's
to,
not-
go back to the time screen,
that's
start,
not
stop
the best
time, or is that something the committee would do?
Yeah, I think Jill and I are in agreement that that's not a good use of this committee's time, that the superintendent would have purview over that.
Yep. And our superintendent, I know, has a great relationship with Jill and has a teacher advisory group, and I'm positive that that decision would not be made in a silo without, significant input from our teachers.
Would it be fair to say that you have a recommendation? You feel more comfortable with the 5 minutes? Not that that's, I'm just saying.
You just want her to take the fall for it.
I do like your suggestion of 5 minutes on either side for student contact,
Yeah.
personally.
I'm just thinking sometimes it's nice when you give somebody a challenge, it's always nice to have a recommendation. It
Yes,
doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be followed, but I think there's a rationale behind the 5 minutes, that it's the least intrusive on the front end and the back end. And to Dr. Dane's point, I remember when we used to have late finals back in the day for high schools, and we started at like 9:10. Those same kids that were late at 7:40 were late at 9:10 too. So
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you it changes, but I think that some of them just late. But it's frustrating at the high school, but maybe the 5 would be easier than the 10, a little bit, something.
Yeah, 5.
Sorry, five's a much easier sell
Yes.
than 10.
On both ends, I think, for
Yeah.
students and teachers, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm thinking about students and parents.
Parents too.
Because for the contract day, it doesn't change for our staff. Our staff are there, they're ready to go. It's the parents oftentimes that are dropping their students off late. That we
I've
struggle
never
with.
done that. Say that. Never have, never will.
Yeah.
No one looking skyward at my kid.
So do we want to go through each item and give the thumbs up, and then we'll wait for the recommendation from Dr. Hubbard on the adjusted time, even though we've got the total number of minutes determined? Okay.
And then Rachel, as far as language, is that something you and Jill would just sort of read what you do before you finalize the master agreement?
So what I would recommend, again, because it's something, it impacts multiple different provisions, I want to be really careful about it, is I would start working on a TA tomorrow, but probably not have it done in time to link to our joint statement, so that we all felt like we had the time to keep our eyes on it, that we thought of things, run it past everybody who might have input and catch something, and then we can, I can share that with everybody before a future meeting, and we can do a quick consensus on it at a future meeting.
Okay.
Because it's just not, it's not a quick one.
Sounds good. Someone want to read through each item? You want to do it singly or as a group of changes? Doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter. Do you all want to do it as a group, or do you want to do each item?
Doesn't matter.
Does it work to do it individually? I guess is my
I think
question.
it still has to happen together,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Together.
I mean, you can't,
was
well,
gonna say,
I guess we
we
could
could
parse them out, but to make our full recommendation,
But then
it's
that would-
all encompassing, isn't it?
Correct. They all impact each other,
Yeah.
so.
It needs to be done.
So option one for P&A changes that this group would have to reach a consensus on for them to go into effect would be to increase the elementary contract day to 8 hours, to increase elementary plan time from 2:30 a week to 2:50 per week. And it doesn't change the contract days.
Does
So I think
not.
that would be
I mean,
it.
unless you want to make it less.
So we would basically be reversing whatever was done in the 90s.
And with that, do we want to say, that with the acknowledgement that we would add student contact time to increase
Yes,
PL and work days?
yes, acknowledge increasing student contact time. And I forgot one thing. That would be that we would delete out the pilot program and revert back to the language about staff meetings.
Yes, thank you, yep.
I was just going to show that I put that other one in there,
Okay.
the 5 minutes.
Would we also be voting on option 1 or 2 minus the actual delineated times?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's what it was, right? We're voting to approve or not. Option 1 with moving elementary to 8 hours,
Yes,
250 plan minutes, the acknowledgement that there would be an increase in student contact time, which would add 3 to 4 days to the calendar, not contract.
Depending upon the
3 to
year,
4
correct?
non-student days is maybe the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Non-student days,
And then
deleting the pilot.
delete, and then adding back in, yes, which would add back in the 4 optional or opportunities for staff meetings on Tuesdays.
So can I defer to Dr. Dennis real quick, because he and I used to work on the calendar back in the day and look at it, and I know it depends upon the year sometimes. Is there a guaranteed 3 to 4 every year, Dr. Dennis? And I know you've been on it way more than me, but I mean, some years, does that get tricky based upon holidays starting in?
Yeah, it always, there's some flexibility in it, which is why I gave you the 3 to 4.
Okay. I just wanted to leave you a little bit of leeway there with,
Yeah, I'm comfortable certainly with 3, but some years we'll have 4.
okay, okay.
Okay. I think that,
I'm
folks
ready.
want to see if you have consensus on that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thumbs up or sideways, either way? Or down if you're not there?
Peer pressure.
Oh, you gotta give us
Listen, I love my kids' teachers, and I hope they don't hate me for increasing their contract time.
They're already working.
Yeah.
Okay, we're like that way.
that's still consensus.
Yeah, awesome.
Good job. This started out as, I think, 5 different issue statements when you began. It was NEA 3 and 4 and part of, no, it was only 3 and part of SMSD 7, so.
No, it was NEA 3 and 4, SMSD 3 and 4, and.
And 7.
7. So
Got it.
you're right, it was 5.
Does this
Congratulations,
awesome.
team.
is looking to the NEA issue 6 regarding staffing and caseload, a component or like a focus, a frame and focus of that involved elementary plan time per week. Do we still need to visit that at a future meeting? Or do we feel like
No,
for
I
this
mean,
particular negotiation set, that issue's been addressed?
I agree.
Okay. I'm gonna just take that off our agenda because it makes me feel good.
Do folks want to do just a?
5-minute?
Yeah, just a 5-minute and come right back, and then who's got the most recent notes on your teacher contract issue statement? Late
Resignation. I don't know if I have notes, but I do have a like menu of options
That was
that I
it.
put
That's
together.
right. Okay.
That's right.
All right, so then,
I am,
so do we just want to jump back right into those in 5 minutes?
yeah, and I
Sure,
can
we-
sort of reorient everyone to what I did there and get your feedback on if it's something we feel like we can work off of.
Okay, so we come back before 4:20, it's 4:12 right now, so.
I can pull up our, at least the document.
The issue statement document? Okay, because I don't have a Word doc on that, I don't think. I'll double check while you guys are taking a break. 4:21, are we ready to go ahead and go live, Rachel? And we're going to kick it to you to screen share and just remind us on the options that we'd already begun to unpack on late resignation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If needed, I can pull up the issue statement, or I mean, you probably have it too. So.
Which, and I put the menu of choices on the issue statement as well.
Oh.
I mean, it never hurts to review our interest when we get down to brass tacks on those brainstormed ideas. Whatever you guys want to go in.
My internet's going really slow. I'm nervous enough to do this. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we had, I'm gonna make this bigger and unhighlight it. Okay, we had generated solutions at our last meeting where we discussed this issue. We started talking about them and I, oh my gosh, felt a little disorganized mentally. And so this helped me to like think through it. So what I tried to do was, without inserting any like actual concrete solutions or working outside of our process, just to kind of put these in a chart of all the possible things that we see other school districts do. And I realized as I looked at it that really what we're looking at is sort of a time division between what happens from the statutory resignation date to the first contract day, and then what happens during the school year, so on or after the first contract day, because it seems like you need a solution for both those time periods. The solution could very well be the same. It doesn't have to be divided like that. You could have the same one all school year, but I do think it helps to consider those separately so that we can see if, you know, what meets our interest with regard to each time period. I also color-coded them just as like an observation of what is generally considered the most restrictive to the least restrictive in terms of late resignation. However, like I mentioned during our last meeting, obviously depending on what numbers you put in, something could be very restrictive or not very restrictive, right? So this is just general. It would really depend how you filled in those various X's that I have in there. So if you put, you know, $30,000 liquidated damages, that could be right up into the red zone, right? So it just depends what you have there.
Rachel, do you have y'all's current practice on that chart or no?
Yes, so that's the gray column.
Okay.
And so,
Oh, I see.
the gray column shows what our current P&A language allows. And so, because our late resignation provision requires 10 contract days advance notice, I don't think you can technically use that during the summer. You have to give your 28 contract days, calendar days notice. So under our current P&A language, if you pass up the statutory deadline, you would need to give the district 28 advance calendar days notice in order to resign your position and be released from your contract. And then if you are past the first contract day, you would have two options. One would be to give 28 calendar days advance notice, and the other one would be to give like a 2-week notice and pay liquidated damages. We do have exemptions currently built in where if you meet those, you do not have to give any notice or pay any liquidated damages. I think we've generally talked about that we are all still in agreement with keeping those and not changing those. But one thing that I did as homework to see if it's helpful, it's a little complex, but it's the best way that I could think of to do this is, you know, to try and draft an exemption that would get at the issue of, you know, somebody who's really unable to continue working under their contract, but not allow for abuse, right? And so what I thought was we already have a way for us to certify personal medical conditions or family medical conditions that, whether they be mental or physical, that afford you job protected leave. So my thought was, if someone, for whatever reason, has mental health issues or physical health issues, and they need to take FML, if they are eligible, we would not do we would provide them their leave and not interfere with it in any way. But if they already need 12 weeks of leave, then they would be eligible to ask for release from their contract at the end of that. I think they could also technically ask for it to be earlier, but the district wouldn't propose that because we don't want to interfere with FML leave. If they're not eligible because they haven't met the 1250 hour requirement, or they are a brand new employee or something, then what we would say is, hey, still go through the certification, take that paperwork to your medical provider. You aren't eligible for FML, but if it says that you need 12 weeks off, then we'll release you from your contract. So this is the best way, and I have spent all the time since I wrote this trying to think if there's any other better way to do it, but I can't think of a way to do it that wouldn't be overly complex, would be confusing for employees, or would potentially allow for abuse.
Would you scroll up to the number 1 exemption, and it's different than this? Oh, you don't have a medical exemption up above. Okay, gotcha.
No, we do not currently have a medical exemption. Now, I don't know in terms of, I was working with some of my colleagues today about, you guys might be familiar with the special rules that apply to instructional employees taking FML, that give employers a little more leeway and control. So for example, there's a rule, it's called the 20% rule, that you can't take intermittent leave of more than 20% of the number of days over a leave period. It doesn't come into play very often because, yeah, there's all sorts of special rules. But the idea being that it's really difficult practically for a school district to intermittently replace an instructional employee. Sometimes nearly impossible. So I don't know what we do right now if someone has, comes and they say, well, I already can't work 12 weeks. I am sure there's some of those situations where we're working with the association under number 3, and
Right.
potentially just, negotiating something.
Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying, because I just recently happened to be reading about FML, FMLA, and it talked about like, if there were situations when you needed to like be gone for a week, but then be back, and then we're gone, random days that
Yes.
you're saying employees in a school district
Yes.
would not apply,
Yes.
would not apply to them.
Yes, and if you look, we have a policy, board policy, I think it's GARI, it's super long, but it basically incorporates all those things. And again, the idea being that it's much easier for a school district to accommodate long periods of leave.
Right.
Because then you get somebody who has regular, like a sub who can have that regular work, and that's probably more attractive to them.
Was there a question?
No, I don't know.
I have an answer, but.
Sometimes I feel like I talk about HR like I know it, and I don't like how you guys.
We do consider intermittent leave per that policy. And I think we have a form. We do it so rarely. And so the employee has to make a request first with their principal to make the request for intermittent leave. And then the principal has to say, yes, that won't be a substantial disruption to the student's learning. Then it comes to us, and then we'll consider it for that.
Yeah.
But there has to be consideration as to whether or not it's going to be substantially disruptive to the students.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So the idea with this one would be, for our professional employees, if for whatever reason, you have a condition of your own, or Jill mentioned as we were talking about this, what about for immediate family members? And you are going to be at your, FML max, or you're not eligible for FML and you still need 12 weeks or more, that upon providing that certification, that would be a qualifying exemption that would allow you for release from your contract.
Whether you have leave time or not.
Whether you have it or not. Yeah.
Got it. And you would be released at the 13th week, or just
So
upon?
if you are FMLA eligible, which is going to be the vast majority of our professional employees, we would not interfere with your leave. So you would take it, you would keep your benefits until the expiration of that time. Now, if for some reason you were like, I don't want to stay on your payroll, or I don't want to be an employee until that date, we could consider it, but we would not do anything to interfere with your leave. We would just release you after your leave expired. What I said here was, you need to let us know by week 9. Let us know by week 9. That, I thought that was maybe a reasonable medium. So you're the majority of the way through your leave. It gives you time to consider whether you're going to be able to come back or not, but also leaves us a little bit of time on the back end to get a replacement for you.
And tell me what interest this was addressing.
There was a concern raised about if we have too restrictive of a late resignation provision, you could have someone who just really needs to get out of their contract for an extenuating circumstance.
That's
or
right, I remember.
It's, there's conflict of some way, and so.
Or if they're not really in a position where they're doing their best teaching because of a mental or physical.
Because of a mental or physical issue, right.
Okay.
Or
Thanks
even
for that reminder.
an immediate family member who they need to, who's a dependent of theirs, they need to take care of, but they're not eligible for FML.
Yes.
Because they're within their first year, for example.
Yes. So this would look like, and I've sort of talked about, I am not a fan of language we've seen in other school districts where you have someone make a discretionary determination of an extenuating circumstance. I don't like putting an administrator in that decision. I don't like the risk that it creates of treating people differently. And I like the certainty that this would give someone covered by the P&A, right? I provide my certification as long as it meets the FML certification requirements, meaning it's completely filled out, right? And does verify a serious medical condition, not like I have a cold, right, or something like that. Then they would auto be released. It would not be a discretionary matter for human resources or for the board. It would be a contractual auto release. Now, if, going back to your question of when, if you are not eligible for FML, then this provision states that as of the day your certification is, approved, then you'd be released from your contract. And I don't think that takes very long for human resources to process those. So I don't know in terms of where we go next, other than people throwing out possible solutions.
Your screen went away, Rachel.
Oh, I don't know how.
I know when we discussed a previous topic about the buyback solution, we talked about doing something small so that we could see if it would affect the use of it. So I don't know if we want to consider something like that where we make not a whole lot of changes, but I would say one change that I've heard you discuss and I think is important is in the summertime, when you have the option to resign with a 28 calendar day notice, you don't have to come for any of your contract days for the next year. You can put in your resignation in June and not pay any money and not show up for work at all. So one change could be to take out the 28 calendar day advance notice option in the summertime.
And if we took, what would you propose? The options are nothing all the way up to,
Right.
So if we took that out, where would you propose going, A through F, I guess?
Like just no release or.
And while you're looking at that, can someone read our issue statement just to remind us on the problem we're trying to solve? And then there's a pretty short list of interest. Anybody have that document
The
open?
issue statement is.
How do we reduce the negative impact on late resignations on all stakeholders?
And then what were the list of interest?
A lot.
A lot. Are they just just bullet pointed words you can read?
No.
Okay. So how do we reduce the negative impact on all stakeholders?
I would say, so if we took out 28 calendar days advance notice in the summer, I would either say liquidated damages, escalating liquidated damages, or I think you were saying no release, and that you would have to.
You have to come in and
Come in
work.
August for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Because it does put the district in a bind when people leave in the summer, and then you have to scramble to find someone to start August 9th, I think, is this count?
But the summer resignations could still happen if they met one of the 3 or 4
Yes.
exemptions?
Yes.
Though, yeah, those exemptions would always
Those are always
be
there.
Okay.
applicable.
Could we build some consensus maybe? So would we, I would make a suggestion that we would keep the 3 exemptions or add the 4th exemption to both the current P&A, to the, both in the summer and during the school year.
Yeah. I would be in favor of that.
Progress, yes. Yes.
So now,
Baby steps.
it's what we know is our pressure point for sure. What does that look like then if we have escalating liquidated damages during the summer plus the 4 exemptions? What would be a proposal for what happens during the school year plus the 4 exemptions? So now we're looking at this column right here on the far right.
Right.
I would make a proposal that it's suitable replacement.
So that's our orange up at B.
With the,
I thought we talked about, instead of calendar days, maybe changing it to contract days at some point, because that way it's days that you're working and not just total calendar days.
Okay, say that again, I'm sorry.
I thought we had talked about at some point, and it's okay if I'm wrong, that changing the verbiage from calendar to then contract days, so giving your 28 contract days advance notice. That way you would have to work, that way you couldn't leave like during a break or an extended weekend or something like that. That way you're actually working those 28 days instead of.
So that would just give the district longer time
It would
to
give
try to find.
yeah, it just gives a little more time.
Good.
I will say about the suitable replacement, we talked a little bit about the difficulty in replacing some positions opposed to others. So a little bit of a difference in how long it would take to replace one.
There's definitely an equity, but I don't know how we solve that one, to be
Right.
honest with you. I mean, I agree that there is one, but that's just,
Right.
that's suitable replacement. I don't know if we'd be here every day for years to catch that
Well, and so
one.
that's kind of why my hesitation to go with that one, but.
Yeah, we did talk about the change to the contract versus calendar days, 100%. I guess I'm going with what I really want.
Yeah.
And I get that,
Yep,
I'm just reminding
Yep,
that
100%.
we had discussed that
We did.
because again,
We absolutely did.
in my own interest as well as a sped teacher,
Right.
we're hard to replace.
Right, so I guess my sell would
Like-
be the suitable replacement because we are in the year, kids are
yeah.
in the classrooms, we need the people that we've hired and that we've committed to, and we will release you as soon as we can find someone to take that spot so those kids aren't being impacted negatively. And then my further sell would be if we add the additional exemption of the health leave, I think we've accounted for a lot of the what-ifs that employees may bring to us, right? So we have move of a spouse, help me remember, promotion, mutual benefit, and then the health. So the only things that are left, I think, are things that aren't worthy of negatively impacting kids or your colleagues. You know, I'm not going to name, so.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking through some of the
Yeah.
people I may have worked with this year where most likely the 4th exemption, they probably could have utilized.
Right.
Although they could have also utilized FMLA anyway.
I would say from a
they were
mental health
offered.
perspective, I would rather be explaining to someone that they can go get a certification than that they must go through 28 calendar days. I just feel like from a work environment perspective and a health perspective, like it's difficult to say to someone who's got for whatever reason, that condition that prevents them from being their best at their job, you gotta stomp it through 28 more contract days because the district's gotta try and find someone to fill your position during that time. I just worry a little bit about what that looks like. And I think it then hurts the interest of, not, making things more difficult for the coworkers and the people that are there continuing to work with that person. Obviously, we all want to work with people who generally are signed up to be there,
Right. So at what, okay, sorry, I'm trying to process. At what point within that suitable replacement does that person who then wants out get to the point where they're ridiculously toxic and they're no longer good for kids.
They should qualify under the fourth exemption.
Okay, as long as it would then qualify
I mean-
under said fourth exemption, that's my only thing.
They need to go
because
visit someone.
I get it, like, I understand, I get it, but we've all worked with those people who pull up to the building and they would rather it be on fire as opposed to walk in.
Yeah.
And that person then needs to then just not be here, because it's not good for anybody, especially children.
I would also say those individuals are oftentimes steered toward conversations with the association, and we're working on a,
Right.
agreement.
Well, could number 3 also cover that person?
Yeah, number 3 often is how we're doing it, because again,
Okay.
it does not make sense for that person
Right, and that's my
to
only,
keep working.
that's my only other thing with the suitable replacement option, is I would just hate for someone to continue, who's already obviously burnt out,
Yeah,
to then
yeah.
continually get to
You all
that
had that on
point.
your list of interests,
So-
I believe.
We did throw around an idea of a semester, meaning like you are looking for the suitable replacement, and then semester
They could
being
do the
released.
28th.
But I know we talked about, like, what if you ask for a suitable replacement, December 15th? Then you don't wait very long until, so.
And I worry we need that pool of people to fill the people who've accessed all the other ways that you can resign.
And I think it's good to remember too, that right now, people who have suitable replacement are able to take our folks because it's easy to get out.
Right.
You know what
Correct.
I mean? So,
Well,
I
I mean, we
think
kind of do it too, though, right? I mean, a little bit to some of the other places that allow that as well.
Not during the school year.
yeah,
Not during, right.
not during the school year. I mean,
Right, I'm
that's
thinking
what's
summer,
really
you're
hurting
right.
us. So,
I'd say with the efforts from our Human Resource Department and all of their recruitment efforts, I think they've done such a great proactive job of recruiting people at semester hires. I think we've created a lot of opportunities for teachers that went out of their contract with a suitable replacement at semester. So I think we're seeing more and more people, even though we're not seeing as many teachers, but that's always an opportunity when those mid-year graduates come out.
and I think to maybe help push this forward, if we can get some traction, if we could write what do we say, like an agreement, not an agreement. but
MOU?
Collective
A
commitment.
collective commitment that I believe in other districts, there's a belief that the human resources offices don't really try to find that suitable replacement. There's not much effort. I've heard that. I think we could have a collective commitment that the HR team would post immediately and work diligently to try to find that replacement,
Would a-
along with the principal and.
That's a great idea.
Would a long-term sub ever be considered as a suitable replacement if it was taking months on end?
I think that's what we're doing now. I mean,
Right,
when
it
they
is,
leave,
it is.
we're backfilling with the building sub and long-term subs, so I don't,
Right.
And then the problem is that impacts other interests, because if you need to take leave and you want the sub to be available so you can take your leave days, but they're not there because they're filling a late resignation hole.
Is it defeating some other interest?
Yeah.
You guys know when you have multiple choices, you usually start trying to say which one of these options meets most the interest and doesn't harm any others. But I know you have a long list of interests, but if you went through them, would it help you guys be more solid about where you may go with this? Right? Are people being a little bit kind of like unsure because that reminder of your interest might just give you the push to do what you need to do and make a decision? I don't know. I'm not hearing you guys talk much at all about this, the graduated damage amount, liquidated damage amounts and stuff like that. There were some conversations you had about that early on about it's hard to collect, you don't end up collecting, it's hard to determine what a damage is, or
I think
doesn't seem
the
to be traction there.
current proposal we're working on has us using the escalating liquidated damages in the summer.
Okay.
I think that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yep.
I see.
And I mean,
I see.
it's
It's not-
probably a little more palpable in terms of collecting that. Again, it's an odd transaction during the school year. I think it's less odd during the summer when you essentially have a buyer's remorse. I went out of my contract situation. That's typically what the summer's gonna be, if you're not meeting one of our exemptions already. Never mind, this was more attractive to me and I wanna take it. I feel like that's just a little more palpable to say, okay, you signed, you want a break, it's X dollars.
I think what we were discussing now is similar to when we looked at other agreements, KCK is coming to mind, where they have there's other ones too, where they have an escalating thing in the summer.
Which I can probably, I don't know, my internet's so slow.
If you had exemptions 1, 2, 3, and 4, what would the reason you would not want to do suitable release during the school year?
I don't know. Like if someone says, teaching is not for me, I'm gonna switch jobs in October to be a rocket.
Accountant.
Accountant.
I don't know. Yeah,
Well, that-
anything.
I mean, it's kind of funny, but I mean, that's really what
Yeah.
we're fighting against,
Right.
honestly.
Right.
And to me,
A job
just to
where I can
say it
work from
again,
home.
and I mean, to me,
Yeah, or
that,
remote.
that allowance for that employee is not worth the damage to the kids in our school system.
Right.
Well, and that's why I want you to look at your interest, because it seems as though you all are wanting to find a solution that meets an interest that isn't on your list. Right? Your ability to let people do that doesn't really meet any interest.
Right.
It doesn't help student learning, it doesn't help their colleagues.
What
it
I would
doesn't-
say to that is that a person's probably going to do that anyway, if that's really what they want to do. So then what's your recourse, I think is what the question
Yeah,
was in
so,
that situation.
The consequence there would be, because so if we're talking about this particular solution, we would not have a liquidated damage option built in, and then we would file to seek like censure on their teaching license. It would only go till the end of the year. That's as long as the Professional Practices Commission's going to grant it. In that situation, they're, dancing in New York anyway, so.
So it doesn't matter, yeah.
But if they go to apply for other jobs, that's going to be on their record that they left their kids high and dry, in October or whatever.
What do they call it, that they had something on there?
Would it prevent them from going to teach in another district that year?
It depends on that district standards. In Shawnee Mission, I'm sure it would.
Would, yes, for us, yeah.
Okay. You guys have spent a lot of time on this.
Yes, we
So
can.
I'm just
hard-
process-wise,
it's hard.
we can put it on the agenda for next time. We're down to 12 minutes. I think there's hard choices to be made, and I think that you can't really bite the bullet unless you read through that list of interests. Usually that brings me back, getting people focused again. John, do you want to just read through them real quick?
We are.
Do you want to jump on?
Are they?
Do you want to?
Are they
Oh, yeah.
bullet pointed
I'll get off.
sentences? Just like basically, why are you doing this, right? And remember why you're not, and then see where that takes you. I mean, maybe there's a missing interest,
might-
Well, I
maybe.
think the big
We
thing
might be
comes
closer
back
than maybe
to
what we think.
retainment.
That's what I'm wondering, are we
Well,
closer than what we think?
I think we might be, only because we had a really long session. I'm not sure. It might have been.
I think this is our third time.
Yeah, it is. It's the
Time
third time,
before
but that's okay.
I think we're super close.
I mean, so what we're talking about with liquidated damages during the summer would provide more flexibility for teachers to resign during the summer. But less flexibility to resign during the school years for good reason, I guess I would say. Or for bad reasons, but more flexibility to provide for good reason.
Yes.
Correct, with the added exemption. That's why I think we're a little closer with the added exemption. I mean, just from what I'm hearing, I'm a little slow.
No, I know, I said
It
that
is
about 5
late.
minutes ago. With those 4 added exemptions, I'm still not sure what interest this solution is not meeting. That's what I'm trying to get back to, like, what on that interest list, what is it not meeting, or is it meeting it, and we're just
I
taking.
think it's just the hesitancy for the suitable replacement piece, because that's not completely equitable, although we are in a teaching
So it's the
shortage at
equity
this point.
issue of it, okay.
Yes, personally, that's what I'm
And that's the
seeing.
challenge.
And I get it, yeah, it's not gonna be- I
I'll
get
admit
it.
to the equity issue, and
Yeah.
I agree with you, but
Right.
I don't know how to fix that one. And I
We're
don't
not-
think HR can.
We are not going to fix that,
Okay.
but that's the big, I think that's the hangup at this point.
I kind of take a different angle on that, and my solution is no release. If we're looking at being competitive with Blue Valley and DeSoto and Olathe.
I also understand the
then
concept of signing a
we
contract.
we
and
have equity if
having
we
the
have no release,
So-
understanding that we do have the 4 exemptions.
Well, you had inequity prior, right? You're carrying over an inequity that you had before under a different system, and no matter if there's 28 days where there's liquidated damages, still that group of teachers is still going to be a little inequitable, right?
Right.
Our competitors are taking teachers from us
Right.
because they have a no-release contract.
Yeah. I know, but you're saying that like special ed teachers, they'll never,
Well, when it comes to suitable replacement, so if
Right,
you put
for
it in there for
suitable
suitable replacement, because, like, there's 2,200 sped positions at this point in the
but,
state.
and
like,
even under the current language, 28 days didn't help the district
It's not
find a sped.
going, it's not going to, it's not going to
Right.
help the district find someone, and
Right.
it's just not, that's not
Right.
helpful.
So we're not, so in other words, we're not problem solving for a problem that existed before, and we're not making it worse.
Right.
It's just changing.
Yes.
For everyone.
That's, yeah,
Okay.
so.
Well, that helps. Thanks for being really direct about that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why are we lingering still?
Well,
It
I got
seems
you.
Like the choice is obvious.
It's probably also requiring people to make the decision as to whether or not they want to continue with the
Yeah.
district. You must make that decision by the 2 weeks
The
after the
second,
third
yeah,
Friday
that's
in
like-
May.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then that's something to talk about.
Is there
Well, I mean,
financial
that's-
incentive to
That's
decide
state,
early?
that's state language.
Yeah.
Is
Like,
it
What I
just
mean
requirement
is that,
that
like,
they
they
get
can't
paid
like
if
kind
they're
of wait
notified
over the
early?
summer. I'm not sure, I'm not sure.
January 30th.
No, like if
No.
you haven't given your leave.
Resignation or
it's not-
something.
Yep.
I was just bringing up, there is a financial incentive built in the P&A to make it even earlier than that.
Right,
they
if
gotta-
you know
Oh,
that you're
yeah,
going
that's
to
right.
resign at the end of the year, if you let the district know by January 31st, you actually get a $1,000 stipend. By letting them know in January that you will
Right.
finish out the year and then resign.
And do most teachers, and I don't know if your resignations are newer teachers or not, most teachers know these dates? The January date, the May
They
date?
should.
I'd like to think we communicate it pretty.
And we're gonna build it into an awesome summary
That's
Q&A
what
that I'm working on.
I know my principal typically puts it in his update
Oh, that's great.
that, hey, this is that date, let me know. And he likes to meet with staff one-on-one too, just to kind of discuss the next school year, and he discusses it then too if needed.
John, if you'll scroll back to the interest, if you had to talk to folks about why you made a decision, if you make a decision to do suitable replacement or no replacement, is it no
Yeah,
release?
it's just, yeah.
Right,
sign the
so your
contract,
interest
you're in it.
here was to avoid detrimental impact to
I get it.
students. I don't know who's listening online, I'm going to say it for you, and you're going to say it in your ratification meeting, I'm assuming, or not. Right, I'm just saying, like, it's a hard choice, and if you're going to take some hits for it, I think you've got some really good talking points that are real, right?
I think the biggest talking point as well as detrimental to students is the impact it has on fellow colleagues. I mean,
Right.
it hurts our fellow teachers.
Avoid the burden and the stress the resignation places on teachers, other building leaders, district admin, avoid undue burden on substitute pool,
I'm trying to look at it on the internet.
and having qualified teachers in the classroom. I mean, I was going to ask the same question, Jill, what about a long-term sub? I mean, I think it would be like, magical to line up a long-term sub that's just as qualified as the sub, or the
It's
teacher
hard
that
to
just
find
left.
those right now as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you guys had some really strong interest, and sometimes strong interests require strong decisions. But is there any other interest maybe that's not up here? I appreciate you being really transparent about the equity issue. I think if we unpack it, it was an issue before, it'll be an issue after.
It's gonna, yeah.
The timeline issue, nothing within our control on that because that's a state thing. Is there another interest or issue people feel like they want to kind of unpack before you?
I mean, I
Decide.
know I've said this before, but and not to be like too direct about it, but as much as there are times when we have teachers who want to get out of their contracts, there are times when the administration would like to be able to release a teacher from a contract, but we have to honor their contract. We don't have, the amount of work that has to be done on the district end to release a teacher from there. They have an incredible amount of job protection under their negotiated agreement.
Right.
And so I think what I'm getting at is equity in terms of both sides honoring it.
Yeah.
My only just clarification is exemption number 4. What documentation is needed to qualify for that exemption?
Thank you, John.
Yeah, so we have FMLA paperwork that is pretty unified across the state that we get from CBIZ, our broker. They take that to their provider, whoever it is, whoever is going to fill out that paperwork. So long as they provide that paperwork from that medical provider, we will consider it. We'll have an interactive conversation, which is required by law. And I would tell you that they go through, for the most part.
There's like, you see some like submitted by someone's like psychic or, I mean, like those are the kinds of things that
That's
you
where I was going to,
flag.
is
You're
like,
this is, no, this,
yeah.
they need to have a certain degree. It needs to be an actual serious medical condition and not like a hangnail, I mean, those are the kinds of things you're looking for.
Right.
I mean, isn't it generally something that can be recurrent or recurring in a regimen of treatment?
Yeah.
I'm really depressed, and every single day that I drag my butt in here, I feel completely at my wit's end. I can't do it any longer.
Yes.
And my doctor's treating me.
And we already see those.
That's FMLA.
Okay, so then kind of to go off that, to go off of that too is, and you may not know on the top of your head, can that documentation come from priority one, the on-site? Okay.
Yep. And I was going to add that there's been precedent set over however many years that the district has been around of things that we have approved for FML. And so in my mind, if they're approved for FML, they would be approved for this exemption.
Yes.
So we wouldn't be able to
It's the
say,
exact same.
no,
Right, well, that's what your language
we've approved
says,
it for
I think,
FML in
yeah.
the past, but because you want to get out of your contract, we won't approve it.
And to
That's
clarify,
not-
that's what this language says, I
Right.
believe.
Yes. It'd be the exact same standard applied.
Can we look at the exception under number 3 again?
Yeah.
Number 3 is just an open ability, right, on either side to release that person.
The mutual benefit.
Yeah,
Through a separation agreement.
okay.
It says it's currently, oh, there we go, someone's got it, great,
Yeah.
thank you. And so those are your, every possible scenario, it's factually different every single time. Probably the most common would be that we have a performance concern or misconduct
Oh, yeah.
that's come up, and the professional employee may or may not agree with the determination of what has occurred, but sometimes we're doing it in there, we are separating there because neither side wants to go through any level of a disciplinary process.
Has an employee ever initiated that, or the association ever initiated conversation under Mercer? Okay.
So if the solutions that we've come up with, and I'm new to this process, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Rachel, you want to share again? John, thank you for sharing those interests.
If they meet our interests, isn't that telling us that's the solution we need to go with?
Yeah, with IBB it is, but
The only hangup just being now whether or not we're doing suitable replacement, no release,
Right,
is
but
what
she-
I'm understanding.
yeah, she's saying the
we
decision you
have
make
to-
is the one that meets most the interest.
We have to also look at how we fill in those X's. So what, both if we were considering a solution that had escalating liquidated damages prior to the first contract day, what are those deadlines, what are those amounts? Now, we had to come up, last time we negotiated this, with a one-size-fits-all amount.
Right.
I think this would be more equitable in that the sooner you decide, the less you pay.
Yep.
I kind of like something really, like, I would propose for escalating liquidated damages over the summer, and I'm looking at KCKs here, and it kind of makes sense to me because it's easier to communicate. You get a June amount, you get a July amount, you get an August amount.
Do you know when it says the opening of the new school year, if that means the first day with students?
I would not write it like that, I would write the first contract
day.
I would borrow some of this, but I think first contract day is clearer.
And then one more question about the 21 calendar day notice, your fourth exemption. When you're on FML leave, you're asking the employee to let you know in the week 9 whether they're going to, if they want to resign or not.
Yes, so they could do it at any point, right? They get there, they turn in their paperwork, and they could do it right then. Or they could also say, I need to sit and see how this goes, because it might be that with some time off, I can do this, I can come back, I can,
But they trigger it.
but they trigger it. It is up to them to trigger it. So basically, whether they tell us day one that they're certified, or they tell us how did I write it?
You wrote 21.
21 calendar days
Notice before the,
before the end of the expiration of their 12 weeks.
would they would have to know that was coming up on their own, like set a calendar reminder for themselves.
Yeah, and I could write it maybe a minimum of 21 calendar days before the expiration of their 12-week FML. That might be
That would be
easier.
Yeah.
My only concern is what if between week 9, week 12, however you word that, the condition gets worse?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's a big what if, but
Well, but then would they be covered under one of the other exemptions based on what's happening? Or no?
I mean, yes,
maybe
potentially
they
they
could.
could move to mutual benefit.
Yeah.
Or
It
something?
wouldn't change the FMLA status.
Yeah,
though,
no,
right?
they'd still not have to come to work.
They'd still have
They
the
still get
3
paid, they still
weeks.
not have
The
to come to
doctor's still
work.
saying they can't work.
right, got it, okay, thank you.
It just needs to be on your payroll 3 weeks longer.
Got it.
Correct.
No.
And
they
benefits.
get paid.
Okay, that's just my probably lack of knowledge on FMLA.
That's okay.
So to, maybe the next thing we should talk about, if we want to actually have something more concrete to vote on, would be amounts for liquidated damages. What are we at right now?
2,000?
Just the
$2,000.
2,000?
Just the
And it's during the
Just-
school year?
And it's only
It
during
used to be
the-
1,000, 2 years ago, we changed it to 2,000.
What if we did 515, then 2,000?
Okay.
I mean, you're getting the elevated process, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, and we're still ending up where we're trying to finish.
So we're not increasing the maximum beyond what it already
I
is.
mean, it's an effort to,
Yeah.
especially since we just negotiated that last year. I mean, the $500 isn't going to do anything for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
June, you still got a shot. You still got a shot to find somebody. Right. June.
I'm processing. Yep.
So the current development of a possible solution would be, looking, I want to go back to our menu here, would be during the summer, meaning after the statutory date and before the professional employee's first contract day, they would be eligible for release of their contract, no advance notice, upon payment of liquidating damages of $500 in June, $1,500 in July, $2,000 in August,
2,000 up to first contract.
up to the
day.
first contract day. And in addition, we would have the 4 qualifying exemptions that would prevent them from paying liquidated damages. During the school year, we're looking at suitable replacement only, plus 4 exemptions and a collective commitment that the HR team will post the position immediately and work diligently to find a suitable replacement for that position, meaning that the work is actually going to be done to
Yeah,
find a
it'll be
suitable
real, yeah.
replacement, not just, we'll wait till someone shows up on our doorstep.
Yeah.
I'm losing my voice.
Are we going till 5:15 or 5:30?
Till the last one falls, but
We're over.
I would suggest we vote on that.
I agree.
I'm good.
is everybody
Everybody clear?
comfortable with voting?
And we're just doing the summer, correct?
Just the summer?
I would vote on everything she just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we should have
Yes.
But with this, we're also taking the 28
Take
calendar
out the
days
28
advance
calendar
notice.
days, advance notice.
You want to
Yes,
update it
yes.
to make it look like what you'd have in a final version?
Take out
Say-
that.
4 exemptions.
Yeah, so this would be 4. That would be 4. Let me take that out, here we go. Oops, there we go. Plus CC regarding efforts to find suitable replacement. I mean, so this, in terms of, again, what this looks like is you get liquidated damages back.
44 exemptions.
Wow.
I want the list.
You get liquidated damages back over the summer, lower liquidated damages amounts for earlier in the year, We're not increasing beyond our current 2,000 amount. We are adding an additional exemption, but we are tightening up the ability to resign late during the school year. Again, though, adding a fourth exemption to try and capture those health reasons of yourself or an immediate family member. Ooh, sorry. Ah. All right.
Okay.
I'm ready whenever you guys are.
All right.
Awesome. This is another one that I'm going to spend time on the TA and not try to rush it.
Thank you.
I'm going to borrow what I think is the best language that some other districts has, and then I'm going to make it even better. And then I'm going to work with Jill and go back and forth. I'm going to work with Mike and go back and forth. And then I'll share it with the whole team before a meeting so you can review it before, and then we can do a quick consensus on it.
Okay.
So we actually have a approved TA.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Rachel, is there any reminders you need to do about report backs, materials, or homework for next meeting? Are we going to be ready to roll next meeting?
So next meeting, we'll focus on NEA identified issues. And I liked the way Jill suggested some tweaks to the agenda, and I think it's just a lot more, it makes a lot of sense. Like,
It
we're,
gives more time to our supplemental pay schedule committee.
so we will focus the entire next meeting on talking through the identified like concerns that were talked through at our previous meeting.
It was a lot.
And having some sort of, experts on those topics talk about those things.
So that's next Wednesday.
And I have already worked with Sherry Dumoulin,
Okay.
and she's ready to go, and I know Dr.
I'm in person
Schumacher
again
has
next
worked.
Wednesday.
So,
And we have to be done by 3 because of,
That's right.
there's a, Dr. Neal has some reception.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just want to make sure everyone knew.
So there's a reception. Just to let you guys know, I'm really mean about this room and I take it from people all the time. But some things I can't trump on, and that was one of them, so. All right, thanks everyone.
All right, thank you.